All right, what's up, man? So, I have been thinking a lot about the Zeitgeist, which I've talked about a few times. I've kind of brought up the devouring mother archetype. I've talked about some of the issues with masculinity that come up a lot when you're discussing the Zeitgeist. And the more and more that I observe, like social media and young people at my college and things like that, the more that I am starting to realize like the pressure on men and masculinity in society really does exist. And a lot of times when I post these videos, I get people saying, like, you're just making up things, like, there's nothing really happening. And, to me, as an intuitive thinker, I'm like, I think that's the problem, is that a lot of people don't realize like the compounding effects of things that happen. And when things start to change, those little details that begin to change end up exacerbating change. They create a lot bigger change in the world. And what I want to just do today is go over like a couple of the things that I see in society that are really having a negative impact on just a lot of people in general. But I would say, like, from my standpoint, I look at it like as a father, as a previous business owner, and somebody who was like influencing people to become their best selves, develop, and understand themselves so that they can be a better person, enjoy life more, optimize for the things that they're doing. It's hard to do that when you realize, like, okay, there are a lot of things that people have uncertainty around, but also a lot of things that it's not even just the uncertainty. It's like, well, I guess it is the uncertainty, but it's more so like people don't know where the future is going. So I think instead of learning about it and instead of, trying to figure it out, a lot of people just act like the changes don't exist, the same way that they do with when I talk about masculinity and they say, there isn't this fight against masculinity. But if you read the literature, there is a fight against masculinity. And the same way you get people who say AI isn't going to have as big of an impact, the AI is going to have as big of an impact as people say. But I think that, you can make decisions that allow you to have the autonomy and agency, which is what I've been talking a lot about and why I'm influencing people to get into working out. Because, if you work out, that's something that an AI can't do. Not yet, at least. It allows you to develop yourself the way that you want to. Because basically, I've always been kind of against institutions. Even though I went back to school, it was because I wanted to learn what I was missing. But I've always had this bias against institutions. And now that I'm in an institution, I see that even the institution is scared of what's emerging, because what's emerging is these digital institutions, whether it's the AI platform itself, whether it is, Tesla cars that are automated, which it will in time, if they are ever become a major form of transportation for us, they can honestly dictate our entire schedules when they're operated on a grid. The social media platforms are using your data and then creating algorithms of you. So there's a lot of things that are coming up, and like people just every time, especially like older people, but even like younger people who just don't want to think about it, they just ignore it. And I'm just like, you really shouldn't be ignoring it. You shouldn't be scared of it. It's an inevitability that these things do exist now, and they're improving all the time. It's why my minor is in artificial intelligence, because I understand, like, I really need to understand it. I've been working on programming for a long time now, and I was just like, I need to fully understand AI, and a lot of my research is based on that. And I'm doing that, and then I think other people should be doing that, but then they're like, no, there's nothing going on there, and I'm like, I think you're really wrong. But anyway, so what I really wanted to kind of get into was kind of like this datafication that's been going on for years now. Like, people have just let it happen. We have our Facebook accounts, YouTube accounts, Instagrams, Twitters, Reddits, all those other ones, and they have all our data, right? And now what's happening is, we knew there were algorithms, but they're creating algorithms using us. They're actually affecting our behavior based on algorithms. And I think a lot of what they're putting out there is actually influencing young men in the wrong direction, when I look at things like Looksmaxxing, as somebody who's always put preference on being functional over developing my aesthetic appeal, when I hear the words Looksmaxxing and I see what these guys are doing, but they can't even bench 135 pounds, it's really ridiculous that this is a norm in our society, and that, you know, every platform has an algorithm to push this way of looking at things. Every time I go on a new platform, someone who's a looks maxer shows up, and you know, they're punching their face with a hammer or injecting themselves with something, which, hey, I'm not against supplementation, but some of these extremes, just to be weak, doesn't even make sense to me. And I would say that's a big reason that I'm really making this push to like get outside of your type. Don't really try to align with your type. It's probably the worst thing that you can do right now, because then you are going to become predictable. The algorithm is going to know how to influence you to get to do the things that it wants you to do. And I see this on YouTube right now. If you make any content, you've seen it, you know, you make a video and then it has an AI suggestion and it gives you topics that the algorithm would likely push. And what I'm seeing now is I go on to channels that have always existed and they always had similar content, like maybe like how to grow your channel, but they were always doing things a little bit differently. Yeah, we always knew like people would go and take somebody else's thumbnail or a description or just some of the general ideas. But now, you know, people are actually using AI and completely making the same videos, and you see it over and over again. I'll see 10 videos in a row. All these channels are getting deplatformed. Don't use AI this way. And I'm realizing they captured the data of what this channel is. And now, you know, niching down has always been a thing. It's not my thing. I really have a hard time niching down because of just the way my brain processes things. And, you know, I tried to use the AI and I realized it just wants me to niche down. And like, that's not how my mind works. I'm a very holistic thinker. And, you know, I have to move from one idea to the other. And it's often in a broad range of possible ideas. So that doesn't really work for me. And I see people doing it now. And I'm just realizing that, yeah, while they're finding success, they are becoming the node of the platform, you know, because YouTube's now learning, like, if somebody's looking up how to make YouTube videos and get them promoted, you can continually feed them a new influencer or a new YouTuber to watch a video. And that's what people are doing. And you know, originally I think YouTube was a way of externalizing your creativity, right? You know, you have this thing that you're doing in the real world, and then you come on YouTube and you find a way to get other people interested in it, or you share your ideas about it. And that doesn't seem like what is happening now. Right now, it seems like what YouTube and a lot of other platforms want you to do is understand what it wants, what it thinks that you can do, and then do it. And then it gives you the idea to do it and the basic resources to do it, and then it guarantees your success. But that's so synthetic compared to what YouTube originally was, and I think we see this all over the world. Like, in every aspect of society, you are getting algorithms that are creating the circumstances that are going to predict your behavior. And I just, you know, I'm not like a mind control person, but you know, when you can figure out how people are rewarded and feed that reward to promote certain behaviors, I think that's what's going on, which is why you can't just be somebody who's predictable. Saying you're a type and then aligning with that type is probably the worst thing that you can do if you want to have agency and self-control and be in command of your own life, which is really what I'm trying to promote men to do. And I'm not saying don't use the AIs or things like that, but you know, keep some sense of who you are and the way that you do things. I like that 30% rule with AI, and don't let the algorithms program you to do what they want you to do, because you know, you're losing your individuality by doing that. And the fact is, if you want to be an individual, you know, you might have to push against what these platforms are pushing. And then, you know, there is this point where maybe you get deplatformed or demonetized or you get pushed off a platform. But I really do think, like, you know, that has to almost happen enough in order for people to realize what's really going on. Because the people who are just going to go along with what these platforms want, they're going to kind of blow up, but they're going to lose themselves doing it. They're going to get a big channel, they're going to get a lot of followers. There's all going to be cookie cutter stuff, and a lot of people who aren't doing it or who are pushing against it are going to be deplatformed. But that's what's going to push for a better platform at some point, or for YouTube to fix what it's doing, because this was supposed to be a creative space, and when I look at it, it's really not. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop using it, but I'm not going to take all of YouTube's suggestions when I'm making my videos. And it means it's going to take a little bit longer for me to grow my channel, but that's okay, because I think I would rather be an individual than part of that beehive mind, which, when you think of what a neural network is and how it predicts things, it's kind of a beehive mind, and that's what seems to be promoted in our society. And with that comes a lot of bad ideas that just get people's attention, like Looksmaxxing, which I have like a grudge against it right now. As somebody who has been working out since I was 12, to see that this is the way that men are going. When I was 20, it was me and a few of my friends. We would be surrounded around the bench, adding 45s on each side of the barbell to see who could lift the most that day. And now you have one of the biggest influencers who's like known for looks maxing, and then he goes and hangs out with another big influencer and can't bench 135 pounds. And people are still like embracing these ideas like, no, that's not what your role is as a man. You're not supposed to go get your nails done and all this other stuff. I mean, you're supposed to go to the gym and build yourself up in a functional way that makes you a formidable person in the world. And, you know, also your mind, don't rot your brain on these platforms. And that's just pretty much what I'm trying to get out, because I think a lot of people are either ignorant to it or don't want to acknowledge the reality that these things are happening. They're creating myth with it. And they've pretty much already decentralized humans. And I don't personally think that we should, as humans, I don't think that we should just go along with it. I'm not against AI, like I said. I just think that we need to learn how to use it, and we need to make sure that it's not in control of what we do, even subliminally, and we can't let it hijack our reward systems. That's one of the big things, is like it is hijacking people's reward systems. The platforms know it. They know, if we promise you this, to do this, create this type of content, then you will do it. You will be around for a long time. We will continue to push you and the person next to you doing the same thing. And you can just be a YouTuber, not an individual in the world. And that's not what I want to see, people be individuals. And that's why I'm promoting people to, do the things that for now robots can't do. And that's about it. I hope that this kind of helps you guys, because you're going to see a lot of different types of content, whether it's, getting into your fitness if you're an NT, or getting into, reading poetry or doing deep research if you're a sensor. Allow yourself to become a formidable individual in our society. That is my goal for everybody. I've talked about it. I want to do live events and things like that, where we teach people all about masculinity and the healthy ways of demonstrating masculinity, and also where we are taking command of our own lives. We're leading the world, we're leading our families, and we can still have these great things and great technologies come up, but we have the resilience not to let it control us. And it takes a lot of work. It's not just knowing your type, it's not just working out, it's not just getting educated in whatever way that is. It's, putting in the hours to know how to work a program, how to program yourself, how to realize when your brain is being hijacked. There's a lot of things that you need to do if society keeps moving the way it does and you want to be successful and in command of your own life. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Let me know any of your concerns, what you're most excited about, and I will catch you on the next episode.